Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Runs, Wickets and Overs. So tonight we're staying with the theme of Play Cricket Scorer Professional, and we're going to look at the changes, the visible changes between version 2 of PCS Pro and version 3 of PCS Pro, with the latest edition that came out last week. Bear with me, I've got a sound that I thought I didn't have. There, I turned it off. So yes, last Thursday there was another update issued to PCS Pro, an issue numbered 3.0.4.2, and there have been 3 updates issued since last season, since you all used this, or a lot of you used this last season. So before I go too much further, I'm hoping that anyone who wants to follow along tonight has already opened PCS Pro and let it do the update. If not, then please do that now while I just talk for a couple of minutes, because the update usually doesn't take very long. To do an update to PCS Pro, you need to open the software from the Start menu and not from a shortcut on your desktop. This will trigger the update and it will do it for you. If you open PCS Pro from a desktop shortcut, you will just get a banner telling you that you can't log in until you have gone and done the update. So for anybody who wants to follow along rather than just sit and watch, hopefully you will have done the update. So updates generally happen throughout our winter, and there are usually several of them throughout the winter, so that we have a chance to look at what the updates are. We're not just getting them last minute and having to familiarise ourselves with something completely new at the start of the season. So as I already said, since last season there have been 3 releases of PCS Pro. So we had one in at the end of January, we had another at the beginning of March, and we had one last Thursday. Now what we're going to look at today are the main scoring differences. We're not going to look at everything that was changed, because there were changes made behind the scenes, and PCS Pro is not just a scoring tool. In the professional game, it's used for analysis as well as scoring, and there are other systems that connect into it, and there have been changes made to those, so we're not going to consider those today. We're only going to look at the scoring changes and the main ones, the visible things, and some of the new features that you might not be aware of. There are some good things hiding now on those menus, which you might just not know about. So we're going to look at what happened in all the updates since version 2 last season. So if you've got PCS Pro open, we're going to be starting with a new match today, and we're not actually going to be doing very much scoring, because the scoring side of Play Cricket Pro hasn't changed very much. It's fairly stable, and there have just been 1 or 2 little tweaks to the actual scoring side. So tonight we're not going to be doing very much scoring. So it doesn't really matter what game you have open today. You can follow along with just about any match you like. Now, I did provide a match on the YouTube channel. There was a link at the bottom for a brand new match between the Scratchers and the Notchers, which is at the record the toss stage. But if you prefer, you can just create a new match of your own. You can do File, New Match, and create a new match between any 2 teams, and you'll still be able to follow along tonight. I'm actually going to do something slightly different from you tonight. I'm going to download the match from Play Cricket, because there has been one or two slight changes to that. So I'm going to do that, but you can't all log in and get the same match off Play Cricket, which is why I've provided the same match for you to score offline at the same time if you want to. So let's get going and let's look at PCS Pro. This week I've logged in because I need to connect to Play Cricket to download the match. So in the top right hand corner of my screen you can see my name, and that's because I logged in. But for most of you, you don't need to log in because you can score locally. So to download a match from Play Cricket, I would click on File and Start Match from Fixture. In the site, at the top left of this box, if I click the down arrow, I will see all the Play Cricket sites that I have access to, and I would, or actually all the sites, they're not all on Play Cricket. I wouldn't expect you to have a long list, so I would expect you maybe only to see one site, your league team. So I'm going to click on the team that I want to download the match from. But one of the changes to version 3 is that you have some new fields in here that you can search on. So if you're searching for a club, and actually the name here has changed as well. This used to say club and it now says site because it refers to the Play Cricket site that you are connecting to. For anybody who scores in professional cricket, that will still say club, and it will vary because it knows whether you're scoring a professional match or a Play Cricket match depending on the username and password that you log in with. And anybody who scores in both sides of cricket will have two different logins. So I've logged in today with my Play Cricket login, so this says site. We have some new search options such as venue. So if your if your club has a lot of teams and a lot of fixtures, it may be that you want to search for a particular venue, or you've got team and competition type and match type. So there's just been a few extra fields added in here as a search facility. The next change that I want to point out to you is that if you hover your mouse pointer over the date, the tooltip that appears now has the date in it. So ours is a match that starts at 7 p.m. tonight, but the reason that that's been put in is that there are occasions when the same team will play two matches on the same day, and both scorers won't know which match they've selected. So last year with County Second 11 cricket, they played two T20s in a day. So there were two matches on the same day, and both scorers needed to know that they were scoring the same game. And it is possible maybe you have junior cricket and they will have a couple of games on the same day. So that's why that time has been added there to help you when you're selecting a match. So I'm just going to select my match like normal and click on continue. And you will now see that my teams are both populated. And if you've downloaded and imported the match and it's at the record the toss stage, if you click on the scoring menu and choose teams and details, you can go back to this same screen that I'm on and you'll be able to see the same thing. Now the teams have both populated with players, and with Play Cricket you are recommended to select your team on the Play Cricket website before the game starts, preferably the day before the game starts. And that's how play cricket is designed to work. So a captain will select his team so that the scorer, when they download the match, will get the proper playing 11. And wouldn't that be ideal if they actually did it? That's the way it's designed to help everybody out. And some teams do it, but not all. If the team has not been pre-selected in play cricket, then if you've scored with that team before, not necessarily for them, it could be the opposition. I could be the scratchers scorer, and I've already scored a match this season or in a previous season that contained the notchers. So if I've scored for a team before, I will get the last team that I used populated on the screen. So how do I know whether the team is the correct team that's come from play cricket, or whether one that's just been pre-populated from the last time I logged on? And for my team, I might know. I might be able to look around, see the players and identify them. But if it's the opposition, you probably aren't going to know. So we've had a warning triangle appear now. And if I I just hover my mouse pointer over the warning triangle, there's a tool tag that tells me these players have been pre-populated from the last match that's played. Whereas my scratchers team, because I have no warning triangle, was selected correctly the day before the game. So I know that the scratchers team are the correct players, all bar a last minute change, and that the notchers are not, and I should probably go and find their captain and check out whether or not these are the correct players. For anybody scoring in professional cricket, the teams will now be pre-populated from the last match on the server, but that is professional cricket only, and that's dependent on your login, as I said at the beginning. So if it's play cricket, it will be the last team in your database, but if it's professional cricket, it will be the last team that appeared in a game on the NV Play servers. So that if there are multiple scorers scoring for a team, and some of the county second 11s have a panel of scorers, so it won't matter that you didn't score the last match. The last match that was scored for that team will auto-populate. But play cricket users, you don't need to worry about that. If you hover over a player, and we saw this last week when we were doing the editing session, for any of you who joined us last week, if you hover over a player's name, you will get some details about that player. You will see some details that have come through from Play Cricket that include the name, the Play Cricket ID, date of birth, their shirt number, and the last 5 matches that they scored. This is just to help with player identification when you're adding in some new players, when you're selecting players to add to the team. It helps you to work out whether or not you've got the correct players. And it is now possible to upload a photograph of those players. They're not uploaded here, but it would show you a head and shoulders photograph if they were uploaded. Now I can see a note in the chat window from Martin that says, you're not getting any of these new symbols, is it because I'm not logged in? And that's absolutely correct. If you're scoring locally and you're not logged in, you won't see those symbols because it won't have pulled the game down from Play Cricket. The only place it can have populated it from is from your local database. If we click on the Add Player button, I know there's already 11 people in this side, but if I click on the Add Player button, another new feature is that we have a Play Cricket ID in the grid with the details, and you'll see some new buttons at the top of the screen. You've got male, female, and to be politically correct, we have prefer not to say or unknown. the idea of the male and female ones, if you have a club that has both men's and women's teams, you may not want to search through the entire squads to find your players. So you can untick the players. If I untick male, I actually haven't designated any of my players in Play Cricket to say whether they are male or female. So I'm going to get all the players anyway. But as long as you've designated the players in Play Cricket as male or female, then you will be able to filter on those, which saves you from having to scroll through quite so many players. Another new button in this window is the Show Retired button, and it's possible on the Play Cricket website to mark a player as retired. This is to reduce the number of players that you have to look through on Play Cricket. You don't want to remove a player because their history is there. If you look back at an old game, you need that player to be in there. They have legitimately played for your club, but they are no longer playing, and therefore you want to remove them from the view. So this is unticked by default because we don't want to see the retired players. If they're retired, they're probably not playing. However, you could be really sure, persuaded somebody to come out of retirement, and if with this button unticked, you won't be able to see them. And you might think that they're not in the database and therefore you need to create them. To save you from doing that, you could just tick the button that will show you retired players as well. I don't have any of those in this team, but it will show you the retired players as well, and then you can pick somebody that's coming back from retirement. One other feature that's changed within this box, the pop-up for the player also appears in this box as well as in the Start Match from Fixture box. One more thing that's changed is that the search button is now on name rather than surname. It used to say, actually I think it used to say last name, not surname, and the search was done just on the last name. But now this will search both first name and last name, so the box is just called name. So if you have a long list of players, you can type any part of first name or surname and it will find that player. I've only got one in the list, so it's really not worth me searching for them. So I'm not going to bother to add a new player. I'm just going to click on close and then I'm going to start scoring. And I'm going to start as the live scorer because I want to show you some differences that have been made for working together with other scorers, for collaborative scoring. Whereas most of you will be scoring as a local scorer. And today I have some more assistants. So I have Luke here helping me as normal. I wouldn't be doing this without him. But I have two other assistants, hopefully today, who are not here with me, but I'm really hoping that they're there behind the scenes. Malcolm, I've seen his name in the chat window, so I know he's online, and I hope that Mike's out there too somewhere. So in a moment, Mike and Malcolm will be starting the same match as me as support scorers. And you'll see why in a moment. So there will be 3 of us scoring the game connected together and the rest of you as local scorers. So this is the view that you would have got when you imported the match that I exported, because it was this match and it was at this stage that I exported it. Before I do any scoring, I just want to have a look at something on the statistics menu. I want to look at the match scorecard. Some of you may not be aware that the match scorecard looks different before you record the toss. So before the toss, it shows two teams side by side. It's got all the players listed in batting order or in the order you entered them, and with shirt numbers. It's done like that in case you want to print off some score sheets or some score cards before the game for spectators to have. So there's a print button, you can save it as a PDF, you can print it out, and you've got both teams there listed side by side. As soon as we start scoring, the match scorecard will change and it will become the normal scorecard that you're used to seeing. So it will have the side who bats first listed at the top, and all their batting details will fill out as the game goes on, and then the bowlers underneath. But you don't get the second innings, or you don't normally on this scorecard. You don't usually get the second innings until the second innings starts, which means that if somebody asks you for a team sheet or a scorecard while play is going on, they're only going to see the names of one side and not both. Okay, but there's been a change made to that, and we'll have a look at that once we've started scoring. So I'm going to record the toss, and hopefully you'll follow me along now. So I'm going to click on record toss, and hopefully Martin and Mike will have downloaded the match and be along with me as well now. I'm going to say that the Scratchers won the toss and they decided to bat. And we have another change. At the bottom of the toss details box, we have an option now that says create first innings. This is a new feature that was requested for by the professional scorers because occasionally a game will be abandoned between the toss and play starting. So the players haven't taken the field, but the game's been rained off, and yet you've recorded the toss. So does a player get credited with a match appearance if they haven't taken the field? And the answer to that is no. So to stop that from happening, we don't create the first innings until they take the field. So this box is unticked by default, but it will happen now for everybody, not just in the professional game. And if we leave it unticked, you'll see that we have to go through an additional step in the moment. If I tick this box, so if you know it's a lovely sunny day and it's not going to rain, and there's no chance of the match being abandoned between the toss and the start, you could tick create first innings and it would be just as you were used to last season. I'm going to leave this unticked though, so that we can see what you have to do as the next step, because this will be unticked by default. So I'm going to click on save, and my record toss button has now changed into a create innings button, whereas that used to say start play after record toss. So if I haven't ticked it when I recorded the toss, I'm probably not going to tick it until I see the players take the field. And that's the point when the match starts, and that's the point when I'm going to click on create innings. So I will do that now. And now this is back to how it was last season, where it's now waiting for us to start play. Now, one of the things that you couldn't do last season was to edit the toss. So last season, if you got to this stage and you'd put the toss in incorrectly, you would have to click on the undo button or the delete innings button and go back, remove this and re-record the toss. You could click the down arrow and choose the pre-toss status, and it would have also deleted the first innings and gone back to the toss. But now we have an option on the scoring menu that takes us into toss details. And this brings back the same toss details that we went through earlier. It doesn't have the create innings button at the bottom because we've already created it. So I could change my mind completely. I could say that the notchers won the toss instead of the scratchers. I could also say that the decision was different. So I could say I clicked on the wrong thing. Scratchers did win the toss, but they decided to bowl. Quite often in league cricket, it's difficult to get any information out of the captains. So you're having to guess who won the toss. You can see who's batting or who's bowling, but you don't know necessarily who won the toss, and you would have just had to have guessed. But now we could go back and edit it if you guess wrong. So at the moment, because we haven't started play, I can edit both parts of that box. But once I've started to score, without undoing the balls or deleting the innings, I won't be able to change the toss decision, because that will affect who's batting and who's bowling. It would reverse everything completely, or my names would be wrong. You just can't do it. So, but after the players started, I can still change who won the toss. I'm going to leave it now on scratchers and batting. I'm not going to change it, but the facility is there should you wish to do it. So now that we've recorded the toss, if I go back to the statistics menu and I look at the match scorecard, still looks the same. Let's start scoring. Let's start play. I'm going to just accept the opening batsman and the bowler. I really don't mind. Oh, and which end? Let's start at the north end with James Middlebrook. It really doesn't matter. If you want to choose something else, you can. Mike and Malcolm, I kind of like you to follow me so that our game is similar. We'll start at the north end with James Middlebrook. And I'm just going to accept the opening bowler as Charles Lambert. So I have Glenn Taylor on strike, Theo Miller non-striker, Charles Lambert as opening bowler. That's for Mike and Malcolm's benefit. So now I'm going to record a dot ball. Play really has started now. So now if I go back to the statistics menu and I look at the match scorecard, it has changed. So, and this is not new, this is how it looked last season. So I have my batting at the top and my bowler at the bottom, but I still can't see any other names. I can't scroll down, I can't see the names of the bowling side. And it would be really useful to be able to print that team sheet off still. So instead of amending that scorecard, because that scorecard is useful as it is, we have a new option. On the statistics menu, we have an option that says team sheet. And this is very much like the scorecard was, but before the toss. So it's showing me the two teams side by side in batting order with shirt numbers, but in addition we have the little head and shoulders pictures if you've uploaded them. As you can see here, I've just got grey outlines. I haven't uploaded any images of my fictional players. This version will remain throughout the game. It doesn't matter at what stage. It was available before the toss, so you could use this one instead of the scorecard if you wanted to. So this one will remain fixed in this manner throughout the entire match. So the next new feature, or the change in a feature that I want to explain to you or show to you. Now this is where I'm hoping that my assistants are on board with me. And I can see in the chat window that they're definitely here, which is promising. The system does end of over checks if you've got them turned on, and I will show you in a moment where you can turn them on. Now, apart from Mike and Malcolm, you aren't going to see end of over checks because you are scoring locally. It's only if you are scoring a play cricket match that you've downloaded and you are online. If you are working offline with no Wi-Fi, you still won't get the end of over checks because it's going back to a server and it's checking what you've got, what the support scorer's got, and checking that the two are the same. Now, it was brought in originally for the professional game because there are analysts added into this system, and often the analysts are in a completely different location to the scorers. So hopefully all good scorers are talking to their colleagues, and you would verbally do an end of over check. But you can't always do that if you're not sitting together. So it was originally brought in for that purpose, so that it helped people who were not sitting together to do these checks. But it's really useful. Having used it for a season with the end of over checks in, it is a really useful feature. What has changed this year is that you will see, if you have multiple people connected, you will see end of over checks between 3 people instead of 2. Now, I realise that most of you are scoring recreational cricket or league cricket, and there will only be 2 of you connected, so you may never get to see this. But there are some of you out there who occasionally get the chance to score in a professional game, and if you do and you suddenly see 3 windows pop up, this is why. So I'm going to attempt now with my assistants to demonstrate this to you. Fingers crossed it works. So we're all going to score an over of 5 dots and a leg by. I already had 1 dot in there. So I'm scoring 4 more dots, and the last delivery is a leg by. And hopefully my 2 assistants are awake. They saw the umpire's signal and they recorded a leg by. But I'm busy chatting to you lot, and I've missed the umpire's signal, and therefore I'm going to put a run in. I've seen them run, so I'm going to record a run. And in a moment I'm going to end the over. I've just paused slightly because we have a 30-second delay at the moment, and I'm just waiting to make sure that both of my assistants have got to the end of the over. And they have, thank you very much. They've just sent me a message to say that they've got to the end of the over. So yes, I'm sure I wish to end the over, and I hope they have too. So here we have a box that comes up, and at the bottom I've got a big red notice that says scores differ, and I can look through this window and it highlights in red what is different. Now I can see Malcolm has logged in as support scorer, as I asked him to, and on that last delivery he scored no runs but 1 leg by. Mike, I asked to log in using one of my training logins, so he's hiding behind scorer 1 at ECBACO as a support scorer again. He's also scored it correctly as no runs and 1 leg by, but me, I've scored a run. So the red, you have to look at the red items in the box and work out who is wrong. So I'll put my hand up and say, oh, that's me. So I'm going to go into edit mode. Mike and Malcolm can do nothing. If they want to, they can clear this box. They can click on close, clear the box and carry on scoring because they know they're correct. Whereas I've got to amend it. So I'm going to go into edit mode and it takes me to the ball that the error occurred on. For those of you who were with me last week, I'm already in edit mode now. It's turned edit mode on here. So all I'm going to do is click on leg by, click on the yellow edit button to come out of edit, and I get the box again. Now this is again another change from last year. So last year it would have just accepted my edit and moved on. But this year it re-triggers the end of over check. I would have had to have waited to the end of next over to know whether or not I agreed with the others. But this has re-triggered my box, and if Malcolm and Mike still had their box open, then it would have updated in theirs as well. If they'd cleared their box, it wouldn't. They wouldn't see it again. But I've now got scores identical, so I can quite happily click on close. I'm going to confirm the bowler for over 2 as Oliver Mendes. It really doesn't matter apart from Mike and Malcolm, who I'd like to choose the same as me. You can choose another bowler. And we're going to score another over and 2 of us are going to get it wrong this time. So it's going to be a very similar over of 5 dots. We're going to have another leg by. It is a very similar over. I saw the signal this time, but I've recorded it wrongly. So hopefully Mike is going to get it right. He's going to record a leg by. I'm going to absent-mindedly click the wrong button. I'm going to click on buys. And Malcolm is not watching the umpire. He's recorded a single. So I'm just going to wait for them to catch up with me with this delay, and then we'll all end the over together. While I'm doing that, while I'm waiting for this 30-second delay and therefore for them to catch up, in fact they've already caught up, I will answer Lynn's question of what if 2 balls are wrong? Well, then you've got 2 balls to edit. And it may be that one of you's made one mistake and another one's made a different mistake. In that case, 2 of you have got to go in and edit, and it will do a comparison when you both come out of edit. So you really do have to look in that box and look for what is wrong. So I'm now ending the over, and we can see here that we've got 3 different things. So they have, thank you very much for playing along with me. I've recorded a bye, Malcolm's recorded a run, and Mike is doing everything correctly. He's recorded the leg by. So now both Malcolm and I need to go into edit mode. Mike can sit there quite happily. He can carry on scoring. We both need to go into edit mode, and we both need to make our changes. I've come out of the box first, not surprisingly, due to the 30-second delay. But you will see that mine's updated. It's still telling me that scores differ, but I can look and see, well, mine's a leg by, Mike's is a leg by, and in a moment, hopefully, yes, there you go. Malcolm's changed in live action. Malcolm's changed when he updated his. It now says that the scores are identical. So hopefully, Lynn, that would answer your question. You change as many balls as you need to, and either scorer or both scorers need to do it, depending on who's wrong. And I'm now going to click on close. Now, sometimes I'm also, by the way, going to accept the next bowler. We're not going to do much more scoring, so it really doesn't matter which bowler you're going to have on next. There are occasions, sadly, when you find you have a scorer who's not very communicative. and you are happily doing your end of over checks, and you're not really getting anything back. So this is a good way, as long as you've both got the option turned on, and I will show you that in a moment, it is a good way of doing your end of over checks if your scorer just won't talk to you or is insistent on sitting in a different location to you. So how do you know who's connected to you and how many people are connected to you? If you look down in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, there is in the taskbar, it says my role is the live scorer, yours will say local scorer, and you won't have any numbers, you'll probably have 0 in there. I don't know whether you can see that just underneath where my mouse pointer is. I've got 3. There's a picture of a pencil and I've got a 3, and there's a head and shoulders outline, and that's a 0. So that tells me that there are 3 people connected to my game who are updating it. That's why it's a pencil. We're all writing to this game. And all 3 of us were scorers. I'm live scorer, Mike and Malcolm are support scorers. But if you had an analyst, and that analyst was sitting somewhere else, then they would show up in there as a 4th person. And if you want to know who's connected, because sometimes there's a surprising number there, and you're looking around the scorebox going, well, I can only count 2 of us. Why does it say 3 or 4? If you hover your mouse pointer now, this is new. The numbers were there last year. If I hover my mouse pointer on the number, this year I get a list, and they're called coders, more in reference to analysts who code, but it means that we are writing data. So I'm there as live scorer, and it says Malcolm, it doesn't stay up there long, Malcolm is support scorer, and scorer 1 is also support scorer. And those numbers last year weren't always correct. One of the updates is that we have been promised they are more accurate. Time will tell. I haven't scored since we've had, or I haven't scored live since we've had that update. So the 0 means that there are no readers connected. And in a professional game, there will be more people. It's possible that there will be more people connected to the game. Because the coaches, the team coaches, the media department at a club, so we're talking sort of county clubs probably, they can have additional logins where they can read the game, but they can't update it. And the view that they're given is the same view of the score window that you're using. They will see the scorecard, they will have access to the statistics menu, they can see wagon wheels, they can see everything you can see, they just can't update it. But it saves you from having to keep telling somebody else. You have to tell the coach what the bowling figures are or how many 4s and 6s were hit. He can look at it himself. So in a professional game, you will have additional people connected to you, and that number then next to the head and shoulders may have some figures in it. Now, over in the fielding window, and some of you might not be able to see the fielding window because you will have turned it off. It's an optional window. I have mine open. But if you can't see the fielding window, have a look at the batsman's name in the play control window. And you will see that I have got some numbers against some of the batsmen. So I have against both my batsmen, I have against some of my fielders. you might not be able to see that because it's a new but optional feature. So to turn it on or off, you go to the Tools menu and Configuration and the Scoring tab. And towards the bottom of the list, all the other options that you've got there were there in previous versions. So we've got 4 new ones at the bottom. And one up from the bottom is to show the shirt number in the striker and bowler drop downs. They were always in the fielding window, but that's just a good place to see them. But it was a little off-putting when you could see a number against a fielder, but you couldn't see them against the bowler. Now, unfortunately, Charles Lambert doesn't have a shirt number, but if I click the down arrow, I can't do that with the box open. If I click the down arrow, I've now got shirt numbers against Noah and Noah Burns, Robert McDonald and Vishnu Herath, which you can see have shirt numbers in my fielding list. So I'm going to go back into that box, Tools, Configuration and Scoring. So while we're in this box and we're deciding whether or not you want to see shirt numbers, so that's an option whether you decide if you want to see them or not. I'll just look at the other 3 new ones while I'm in there. 2 above the shirt numbers, we have one that is really useful if you're going to do a lot of editing. It's a new option that says suppress scoreboard updates by default when in edit mode. And for those of you who were on last week's session, I warned you that if you made a change quite early on in an innings and you used the autocorrect feature to change every delivery thereafter, the scoreboard would roll round run by run updating itself. If you tick this option to suppress the scoreboard updates, then you won't see that rolling round run by run. What will happen is when you come out of edit mode, the scoreboard will update with all the new totals. So it will only do one update, which is less noticeable and you might just get away with it. Beneath that option, we have show remaining batsmen as did not bat in Scorecard and Scorebook. So if you were coming to a Learn to Score course with me, I would be recommending that at the end of an innings, you write in all the names of the people who didn't go out to bat because we need them in that team list, and we write did not bat against them near the how out column. But PCS Pro didn't used to do that, so that's a new feature that we've got, but it's optional. So I've ticked it because I like to see it. It's what I think you should do and what most people do. So that's an option you can tick if you want, but we can't see it now until the end of an innings. And then the scorecard and the scorebook will update with the did not bat entries. The last item that I haven't ticked is to default to local data only in the averages and the stats wizard, even when you are logged in. Now, it's possible to do to take your play-in statistics from within PCS Pro. But if you haven't scored all the matches, you won't have them in PCS Pro. So you can take them off the Play Cricket server. As long as the details are all there, they can be included in your averages when you're updating it or when you're looking at it. But if you don't trust or you don't want to take maybe don't trust is a bit strong. If you don't want to take other people's entries on the Play Cricket website, you can default so that you are only taking the information from your database. So I would tick this box if I had scored every match, or if I'd downloaded some games from Play Cricket into my database that other people had scored, and I probably would have checked them out then to make sure they were accurate. Then I can default to local data only. Now, I did say that I would show you how you turn on and off the end of over checks. So while we're in the configuration box, if you click on network, at the bottom of the options, you have show end of over score check when other scorers are connected. So you do both need to be connected, you do both need to be scoring with PCS Pro, and you do both need to be online for that to work. But if you want to do those end of over checks, then you can tick that box. So we're going to look now at some additions to the Innings notes. We've had a few additional things added to the Innings notes and the play state. And one new thing that's been added to Innings notes is that the time that it happened, whatever it is now going to be added to the notes. So if we go to play state and we choose rain, you will see that the rain happened at 1951, because that's what the time is. Which is really useful because that wasn't in there last year. And it's really useful in a rain break. Some of the other milestones, you're not so bothered as to the time of when they happened. But certainly for a rain break, we are very interested in the time. And another feature that you will see that has been added is the number of deliveries that a batsman has faced. So it had their runs in there before, but it's now showing us that Glenn Taylor, for me anyway, has scored 0 off 12 and Theo Miller 0 off 0. So it gives me the number of balls faced by a batsman. There are a few extra events that now add to the Innings notes. And one of those is the start of the last hour. Now, this is a topic that you might not be familiar with because it's only applicable to timed games. And most of us score limited over games. So most league games, or a lot of league games, will be limited overs. So you know how many overs are going to happen. But with a timed game, you don't. But in order to make it fair so that the bowling side can't bowl really slowly towards the end of the game and deny a side a chance to maybe get near a winning total, usually in a timed game there is a minimum number of overs that need to be bowled within the last hour. And the umpire will signal to us, to the scorers, to say when the last hour starts. And to record it, if you go to the end over or umpire signal button, you can click this and we need to start play. I had a feeling that was going to happen. So we need to come back from the rain break. And actually, when we do come back from the rain break, if you look in the Innings notes again, it puts the time in that the break ended, which is really useful for a rain break. But now I can go into the end over an umpire signal button next to the play state, and I can choose start of last hour. Now, start of last hour has always been on the menu, or on that shortcut menu, but It didn't used to make an innings notes. It only appeared as an event. And you had to go and search out and look for where the events were listed. But it now makes a note in the innings notes to say this is the start of the last hour. While we are looking at place dates and the end of over buttons, if I click the down arrow, when I go into the start of last hour, I noticed this earlier, for some reason I've got to click end ball. And then I can go into the place dates. We have a new item on the place date menu called timeout. I'm not sure whether crowd interruption is new. When I looked at this, I couldn't remember seeing it, but it might have been there last year. I've never had a crowd interruption. That would be a great game. But the timeout is new, and it's been brought in predominantly for the 100. Because strategic timeouts are allowed in the 100. And you might think, well, why am I bothering to point that out? Because A, the 100 has been deferred till next season, sadly, because of our current climate. But also, we probably might not have much chance of scoring in the 100. But there are lots of new formats that are going to mimic the type of format of the 100 called countdown cricket, and one of those was the new Dynamos scheme, which is for 8 to 11-year-olds. It follows on from the All-Stars programme that was available, and the Dynamos were going to be playing countdown cricket, and therefore they would have been allowed, or they may have been allowed, timeouts. So that's why it's there, just in case you need to put that in. You could have put in, without that there, you could have put in other and typed in timeout, but it's now on the menu because apparently it is a valid thing in cricket. A new feature on the end over umpire signal menu is replacement ball. Now we've got new ball, and new ball refers to multi-day cricket, where you can take a new ball after a certain number of overs. You're probably familiar with that if you watch the test matches, and you'll know that a new ball can be taken after 80 overs. And when you take the new ball, you click on this, and it puts a note in the innings notes. Now that's new. It didn't used to it did used to do it, but not until the next delivery. But quite often you'll get a ball replaced. It goes out of shape and the umpires will replace the ball, hopefully with one of a similar condition. But some coaches like to know when that happened, and maybe how many overs were bowled with the ball, or how many runs were with a specific ball. So you can click on replacement ball and you get an innings notes to say that it was just a change of ball. With the new ball option, you will now get a prompt to ask you whether or not the new ball has been taken. Now they can take a new ball after 80 overs, or whatever it says in the match regulations, but it's up to the field inside to decide when they want to take it. So they might not take it at 80, they might take it at 81, they might take it halfway through an over. But when 80 overs, or however many it's set to in the match regulations, comes up, you will now get a prompt saying, did they take the new ball? Which just is a reminder for you to hit that button. So now we've done a bit of scoring, I'm just going to go back into the scoring menu and look at the toss details, just to prove what I said earlier, in that the toss decision is now greyed out. So I can still change who won the toss, but I can't change who's batting or bowling. So it's just a sort of flip back to the beginning. At the bottom of the fielding menu, if you've got the fielding menu open. We have a new entry that wasn't there last year for a sub-fielder. So again, probably relating more to professional cricket where they might have a substitute fielder. If you are using this window to record who fielded the ball, there was nowhere to say that it was the sub fielder who fielded it. You could always put the sub's name in when they took a catch, but not for fielder. So we have now this new sub fielder option, and if you haven't already typed the name in, you can name the sub fielder in that window if you know the player's name. I'm going to record a catch, so I'm going to go into wicket. It comes up with caught as the default wicket type because that's the most common way of dismissal apparently. The reason why I'm going in here, probably not very helpful to many of you, but there's been a new fielding position added of deep backward square leg. But while I'm going in there to select that, and you do have to scroll a long way, it's well down the order, but there it is, deep backward square leg. You can, if you don't know who the fielder is, click on unknown, it's at the bottom of the list. And last year you could only select that in the primary fielder window, but you can now select unknown in the assistant fielder. So if you've got some marvellous fielding where one player throws the ball in the air and somebody else catches it, you can acknowledge who that other player was who didn't actually take the catch but helped in the assistant fielder window, and if you're not sure who it is, you can mark them as unknown and change it later. Now, one thing, and I'm just going to accept the incoming batsman, one thing that it will do is if I scroll slightly to the right in the ball by ball window, you will see that the word caught is in red text, because that alerts me to the fact that I didn't know who took the catch, and that's the delivery that I need to go and change when I found out who the catcher is. So we've got some red text now appearing in the wickets column. Now I've recorded a catch because I want to record a retirement, and in the previous versions of PCS Pro, when you recorded a retirement, it didn't show up in the fall of wicket section. And some of you are probably saying, well, that's quite right, it isn't a wicket. If they're retired, not out, it's not a wicket. But scoring on paper, we would usually, for statistical purposes, split an over box in half, sorry, not an over box, a fall of wicket box in half, so that we could add both parts of the partnership under the wicket. So we would draw a vertical line down the middle of the fall of wickets box, record the proper wicket in whichever half, whether it happened first or second, and the retirement in the other half of the window. So it's purely for statistical purposes, so that we know how many runs were in each part of the partnership. And that's now been added to our fall of wicket section over here on the right. So to record a retirement, just in case you don't know how to do it, there's a little down arrow next to wicket, and if I click the down arrow from the menu, I can choose retirement. I can then decide which batsman is retiring. Let's make it the batsman who's been in for a while, so the non-striker. And I'm going to make him retired not out, because retired out is a wicket. And I'm going to click on OK. And just accept the incoming batsman. And if you look now in the fall of wickets, it still says that the fall of wicket is 1 wicket, or the first wicket fell on 2 runs, because the retirement is not a wicket, but it's just a split in the partnership. So it does tell us that they were retired not out. So we're coming close to the end of the visible changes now. There is a list of items underneath the description underneath the YouTube window. So if you want to download a list of these changes that I've talked about, you can go to that window and have a look. You will see them listed in a different order to the ones that I've mentioned, and there's actually a few more there than I've mentioned as well. But one that's on that list that I do still want to mention is a new category under Tools and Edit Database for players. There's a new category for visual impairment. So if I go to Tools and Edit Database, and I click on the Players tab, I'm going to edit a player in, or I'm going to look at a player in this team. So I'm going to try and find, I could have typed in the E, which would have helped. Let's go Scratchers and just pick anybody. You will see that there is this new category for visual impairment. And if I click the down arrow, I have a B1, a B2 and a B3. Now I don't know whether we have Paul with us tonight. I've seen Paul in the chat window on previous weeks. I don't know whether we have Paul or anybody else who has been scoring blind cricket. But when you do score blind cricket, players fall into different categories of visual impairment. How visually impaired are they? Now, I am at the edge of my knowledge of visually impaired cricket. So all I know is that they get different amount of runs depending on how visually impaired they are. So you can set the category in here of the different types. So hopefully if Paul's with us, that will be a useful option for Paul. I'm going to click on close. I'm not going to select, I'm not going to change anything. I'm just going to click on close. A couple of things that I'm just going to mention very quickly but not demonstrate is that if you were online but you lost your Wi-Fi connection, if you haven't updated the live scores or the server for 10 minutes, you will get a warning to tell you. And that's just so that maybe you can look into fixing it. Maybe you could get somebody else while you're scoring to look into fixing it. But only if you've been online for a while. Another change is that wides are now included as a ball received in a partnership, but not to a batsman. It still remains excluded as per the laws of cricket to a batsman. We have a match type now that will allow for a different number of maximum overs in the first and second innings, because apparently there are some match regulations that play that format. So it's a multi-innings match, but there is a different maximum number of overs between the first and the second innings. So that's now included. The default paper size has been set to A4. It wasn't before. It was set to either letter or other, depending on your printer. I think it was set on as A4 on some people's printers, but that's now set to A4 on all printers. And for those of you scoring first 11 cricket, first 11 professional cricket, and you're connected to a scoreboard, the bonus points before that you are granted before 110 overs in the game will now automatically display as they tick over. So when 3 wickets fall or you hit the correct number of runs, those bonus points will now appear and you won't have to manually go in and amend them for the scoreboard. So those were the changes that I wanted to mention. There are more changes in that handout that I mentioned, but actually that's just a fraction of the updates that have been done. So I would urge you to read the full release notes, because there may be something that's important to you that I haven't mentioned. But hopefully you will have learned about some of the new features that you might not have noticed because you didn't know they were hiding, like the team sheet on the statistics menu. So Luke, have we had many questions?
We've got a few questions. So the first one from JJ Smallpiece is, are players totally deleted from the database sometimes? I have test imaginary players for practice games. I've tried selecting players in the edit database function, but the delete remains grayed.
No, but I don't think you can delete a player who's taken part in a game. So I think what you'd have to do is delete the match that they played in. So you'd go to the file menu and click on delete match, and you can delete local games that are in your local database. If you clear out the matches that they've played in, as long as that player really is only local to you, then you should be able to delete them. If they are registered in Play Cricket, you will not be able to delete them. Hopefully.
Will the start of last hour change overs remaining? And there was some discussion in the chat about this as to whether change of last hour was affected by overs, or whether it only applied to timed cricket. And there was some debate as to what the situation was there.
Okay, I believe that it will change the overs remaining because in the match type, I'm not sure it's going to show up in here because if I go into I've now got to find a 4-day game. Drastically looking around for overs in the last hour and I can't see them. I'm sure there's an overs in the last hour there somewhere. I can't see it though. There is somewhere where you can tell it how many overs there are in the last hour, but it's set in the match type. And generally those match types are pre-set up for us so that we don't have to go in and do it. Actually no, I'll leave it at that. There is a place in the match type where you can put it in if it's the correct match type. And so yes, I believe when you click on the start of the last hour, it will set the overs remaining to whatever that figure is set to. But the game that we have set up here is a 2020 game, so it doesn't have a minimum number of overs in the last hour. That's why it didn't change mine.
A couple of people have let us know what you were looking for is. Do you want to know?
Yes, please. Where is it?
Fifth row from the bottom, second column.
Thank you, Malcolm.
In the middle next to overs per day.
Okay, it's there. Malcolm spotted it, as did several others of you. Yeah, thank you.
And does the WASP function now work?
Yes. Can I just leave it at that? Yes, I believe it does. So the WASP, I'm really not going to try and explain that today. But yes, I believe the WASP does, and you can set the par and the value if you know what they are. I would suggest that those were figures that were devised or derived by the coach, and the scorer was just responsible for inputting them. Let's not go there today, but yes, I believe it does work.
And
they don't appear in the scorecard window, depends, but no, they are not there. So they only appear in this window here. They appear in the striker and the non-striker box and in the bowler box.
Okay, that's all the questions I think we've had.
That's very good then. So I hope you found that useful, and it was a reminder to some of the additional features that have been incorporated, and also a few things that haven't changed, but things like retirement that we brought up in there as well. So thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, and I hope you found it all very helpful. Luke, I think you look like you've got something else to say.
Yeah, there's one last thing to say, and that's if you want another fix of scoring every week, you might like to check out Cricket Scorers Untallied, a new podcast. The pilot episode is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and Stitcher. You might recognise some familiar voices on it. And make sure you check out the Cricket Scorers Untallied on Twitter as well, as they would like your questions and comments as part of the show for their Ask the Scorer feature.